It is tradition, folks. Here we are, the voice of college football, and another college football ranking season. We've seen 8 or 9 games played from everyone, and it is time to get the unveiling of the first college football playoff rankings in 2024 and the first college football playoff rankings reveal for the new 12-team format. Again, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. We bring our college football show, the college football show, post-game on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Also a Sunday morning show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time featuring your calls. We've left the link in the chat. Please give me a call, and we will take your calls. We will watch the ratings or the rankings revealed together on ESPN, and we will take your calls and discuss it and get your response. Before we go to the calls, we will also keep in mind that the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use our link. Will ND dropping by to talk some college football. Will, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Mark. Just interested to see where my Fighting Irish are. I'm hoping we're hosting, but maybe not yet. Irish may need some help, but I'm hoping they can host. And especially I have one. How do you think Big Ten team or Northern teams hosting at home against the Southern teams? How much do you think that will be a home field advantage? Do you think it'll matter?
Well, the first thing you think of is obviously weather. That's why you're asking the question.
Yes, weather.
There was an excellent study. I had clamored for somebody to take this on. I wasn't going to do it. I wouldn't even know where to find the statistics for this, but I think it was actually AL.com, meaning Alabama.com. Mm-hmm. I found this a few months ago. I wish I should have bookmarked it, but they went through all the playoff models of what the 12 team would have looked back way before, going back into the 2000s for the last 20 years. And they cited where all of those games would have played over the last 20 years, where they would have been played, on what date. They tracked the weather on that date. The amount of snowfall that we would have seen in mid to late December, like December 20th and 21st, I believe, are the first round games this year, is so minuscule, it's not worth talking about. There would have been, I'm talking about let's see, how many first round games are there? 4 before they go to the second round games. Mm-hmm. So we've got 4 games in the first round. So times 20 years, it was over 100 games. I think they did the entire 21st century, about 100 games, over 100 games they did. And it was going to be something like 7 or 8 would have had any kind of snowfall, meaning flurries in the air or anything. And there would have been about 3 games where there would have been significant snowfall. One of them would have been interesting, a Florida State at Wisconsin game where there would have been 12 inches of snow or something. But mostly that would not have been a factor. They said rain would have been more of a factor, like cold rain in the Midwest and in the North. So, I think that we're going to see a bigger home field advantage because the crowds are going to be at a fervor pitch. Mm-hmm. And also we're going to see more weather factor into it. Not necessarily snow, but just very cold, mm-hmm. maybe cold rain, sleet in these games than what we see in November.
Yeah, just what reminded me of that was Brian Driscoll was talking about, I think it was the 2010 Sun Bowl after they knocked off USC for the first time in forever. They played Miami in the Sun Bowl. And he said, those Miami guys, they didn't even want to be there. It was I think it was low 40s outside. So obviously I think that teams will be up there. Southern teams will be up for it. But the question is will they drop more passes because of the weather?
There's going to be a difference between a playoff game
harder.
Certainly a difference between playing a Liberty Bowl game or a Sun Bowl mm-hmm. game as 2 8-4 teams versus playing a college.
Yeah, I know it'll make a difference, but that'll make a difference in it.
And certainly I don't know that we've seen a difference between the level of play from these players later on when they become professionals. Mm-hmm. I don't know that anyone's been able to track that. I'm thinking of some of the best players of all time or Southern players that went and played in places like Green Bay and Chicago and San Francisco and became all-time greats.
Yeah, well, they have a whole training camp to get. They have like practices to get accustomed to it. But if they're just like flying from like Tuscaloosa to South Bend, like they don't have as much time to adjust to it. But I know obviously there are all-time greats to playing for like Ozzie Newsome for the Browns. You would know.
Yeah, so what comes to mind is talking about, well, Ozzie Newsome's one of the greatest tight ends of all time, but the very best, arguably, at these positions, Walter Payton, Jackson State, goes to Chicago and plays for the Bears. Jerry Rice, Mississippi Valley State, well, he goes to San Francisco, so not a call there, but obviously played a ton of playoff games in difficult situations, had one of his greatest in a icy game in Chicago. Brett Favre, Southern Miss to Green Bay. I'm going to be looking for the broadcast here on my phone. Do we know that if they've started?
I think they're about to start it. 25 Army. So Army is 25.
Okay. I'm still trying to find it. There we go.
24 Missouri.
Missouri at 24. Okay.
Vandy's got to be ranked ahead of them, right?
Missouri beat Vandy.
They did. Oh, got okay. They did
in overtime. Let's see how this compares to the 23. AP rankings.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So the AP has Army at 18. They've got Missouri unranked.
Louisville 22. I guess Vandy won't be ranked then. I forgot that Missouri beat them.
Clemson at 23. They're at 19 according to the AP. Louisville at 22. They're at 25 in the AP.
Are there some differences?
At least the committee, significant differences. At least the committee honored the win head-to-head. Washington State at 21. They're at 20 in the AP. Washington State at 7-1. Would have loved to have seen them be 8-0 and run the table, and that would have been interesting. Colorado at 20. Colorado's just outside of my top 25.
Heck of a job by Dion. I had them dead to rights after the Nebraska game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think who they've beaten, who's any good. They lost to Kansas State. They lost to Nebraska. They beat Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Cincinnati's 5-3, 5-4, 5-3. I was partially joking with that being a nice win.
Well, for the Big 12, I was saying Big 12 standards.
Kansas State's at 19, coming off a lousy game against Houston. That was the most surprising game to me last weekend, was Houston beating Kansas State. Pitt's at 18.
Thanks, Ben.
Would have been interesting to see what they would have been ranked had they won and been 8-0.
Iowa State. All the way down to 17.
Oh, I'm seeing this a couple seconds after you. Iowa State at 17. Okay, that's fine. Iowa State at 17 in the AP. Not that it matters, but I'm just thought I'd throw up the comparison there. Number 16 is Ole Miss. Okay. You can give us the call on the next few, Will. I'm going to look up my top 25.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil it for you.
Oh, you're fine. I'm going to grab my top 25.
Ole Miss can definitely move up if they beat Georgia, though. LSU 15.
Okay. Of course, have a head-to-head against Ole Miss.
Man, Ole Miss blew that game.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, there they are.
Let's think it. Whoops. What's going on here? There we go.
They have the bracket up now.
Okay.
A&M 14.
Okay.
So that means South Carolina is going to be up there. SMU 13.
You think South Carolina is going to be
Well,
higher?
are they got to be ranked, right? They haven't shown
Why?
up yet.
Why? They're not going to be
Because
ranked.
of their win. Well,
No.
maybe not.
Because they won one game?
Well, I guess they've lost 3 games, but
it's a resume.
I'm surprised they're not.
It's a resume. I don't have South Carolina ranked.
I would put them ahead of Missouri because of. I mean, I feel like who's Missouri? South Carolina just has better, like competing against the teams they've competed better than Missouri has. I mean,
yeah, I think you've got a good point. But see, I don't have either one of them ranked. That's the difference.
Yeah,
I would not have South Carolina.
Fair.
I would not have Missouri ahead of. I don't have Missouri ahead of South Carolina. I have South Carolina just outside of my top 25. No, I got Missouri at 21. So we're together on that one, I guess. Playoff ranking. So we got Mizzou beating Vandy, getting blown out by Alabama, getting blown out by Texas A&M. Boston College wins, no big deal. And who's Mizzou beaten in the SEC? They beat.
Besides,
they got to have some wins in the SEC, but I'm not.
Oh, they beat Auburn.
They beat Auburn. Wow.
That's
nothing there.
I think that's it. They're 2-2.
They're 2-2 in the SEC. They beat Auburn and who?
Vandy.
Oh, Vandy. And they won an out-of-conference game against BC, but South Carolina lost to Bama close, LSU close. You're winning me over.
Yeah.
Will.
So they got Boise 12, Bama 11, Notre Dame 10.
Oh, they set up the brackets. Here we go. Okay, so Boise State, 12. So they still have, the 2 ACC and Big 12 champs ahead of Boise State. BYU so they have BYU basically as the 9 seed, but they're the highest. They have them as the Big 12 champion. Okay, so they're the 9 seed in a sense. Interesting. And now we're going to start to see the Big 10 and the SEC flood the bracket. Except for SMU. SMU is going to be in there. And we saw Iowa State at 17. So this is going to be all Big 10 and SEC, excluding the ACC
Miami
champ and SMU.
SMU is the first team out. They're 13.
Did not see them. Indiana at 9.
I think Jeffrey would be hoping for a home game, but
wow, that's the best they could do for Indiana, huh?
Jeffrey won't be too pleased with that.
Oh, I like Indiana a lot more than that myself. Not that I think they're better. I just think they deserve better.
Well, we'll see. Indiana's probably going to be facing definitely the most talented team they've played so far. Probably the best team, although I know they lost to Washington, but probably.
Yeah. I
but
would
that
say
was
so.
in Seattle.
I would say so. Then they got the Buckeyes coming up. So Indiana must have a bye in there. So they got Michigan, a bye, and Ohio State, I believe. So,
Oh, they're
folks.
going to Neyland. They would go to Neyland if it happened now.
Oh, Indiana at Tennessee.
I could see Indiana pulling that one out. I mean, they have a shot.
I do too.
They have a shot.
On the road, though. And see, that's a tough call for Indiana. They're sitting at 9-0, and they would have to play a. No, Tennessee just has one loss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm okay with that. But that's a tough draw when you're the 8-9 and you've got to go on the road.
Mm-hmm.
They
played in that bowl game that they blew.
I was just going to say, this is a rematch to the Gator Bowl. Mm-hmm. Tom Allen and Josh Heupel.
Was it Pruitt or was it Heupel?
Oh, that would have been that would have been Pruitt. Yeah, that would have been Pruitt, of course, because that would have been his. Josh Heupel just would have been 2021. That would have been 2019. Indiana blew a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter of that game.
Oh, yeah, Notre Dame, Penn State.
Notre Dame, Penn State.
But that would be, I've seen it.
Love it.
I saw someone else said it would be in South Bend, but in State College, I would definitely try to go to that game. I don't live that far away.
Nice. Notre Dame at Penn State, 7-10 game. See, this is what this is all about. Bama, Texas. I know that's a great game, and those are two blue bloods and all of that, but we've seen them play twice in the last 2 years. They play in the same conference. I don't want to see
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that either.
But I do love the Notre Dame Penn State game.
I gotta feel like my Irish are playing better right now than Penn State. I mean, I know. I feel like the Irish offense would have been able to score one touchdown at least against Ohio State. Penn State did not score a single touchdown offensively.
All right.
Although that's credit to the Buckeye defense, but still.
So we are looking for the 5. So this is the first team. This has got to be Ohio State, right?
Yes.
So Ohio State, Boise State at the Shoe. It's a tough challenge. Mm-hmm. You know, this Boise State team is a bit of an aberration in comparison to the last couple teams we might have seen. At least last year's Liberty team making a playoff.
That would have been embarrassing to college football if that Liberty team would have been in the playoff.
Tulane the year before, decent.
Tulane would have been competitive at least.
So that would have been 2022. 21, can you think of who?
Cincinnati.
Well, that was the Cincinnati year. Yeah. That was the Cincinnati year, and it would have been Cincinnati in 2020. Mm-hmm. And 2019, Memphis.
Yeah.
They were the New Year's 6.
They played Penn State. That was tight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was tight until the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Like about 5, 6, 7 minutes left. Of course, UCF, 2017-18, but they're a Power 5 now. There we go. We got... okay, so they're actually saying... Are they actually telling us that Ohio State's a higher seed than Georgia?
Yes.
In Miami? Okay. Interesting. There we go. All right, folks, that's the field right there. So to run it down once again, you've got Oregon at number 1 with the bye. Georgia 2, Miami and BYU with the byes. Ohio State's the 5. Help me out, Will. They took it off the screen. The 6 was...
The 6 was Penn State.
Penn State against Notre Dame. The 11? No, they were the 7, correct? I thought that was the 7-10.
No, 6. And Texas was ranked ahead of Penn State.
Okay, 6
playing against Alabama.
11 was Texas, Bama, 7-10, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Happy Valley, 5-12, Ohio State, Boise State, first out, SMU.
Mm-hmm.
Who was at 14?
14. A&M.
Okay. SMU and Texas A&M, LSU, first three out. Okay, let's see if we can find this online. See how long it takes them to update.
Are you at all surprised the Buckeyes are 2? Or
yeah, well, I know that it was talked about and it was a possibility. Georgia's been pretty sloppy. Georgia's best win, obviously, is Texas. So I know that by rankings, people consider Texas to be better than Penn State, but are they truly better than Penn State? Have they played a better season
they
than Penn
haven't really
State?
have a strong win, Texas.
No, Michigan. Penn State's best win, Illinois, Wisconsin. So
I mean that's yeah.
Penn State competed better than Texas. So yeah, I think it's justified, but I would have no issue if Georgia was 2. So again, they've got Georgia at 3, and then I guess Miami's 4, and I kind of lose track of it after that.
Miami 4, Texas 5.
Yeah. So we would have how many SEC teams in the playoffs? It would be Georgia, Bama, Texas. Is that it?
Tennessee
4. Big Ten, Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State 4. The ACC gets 1.
One ACC, 1 Big 12.
Then you got Notre Dame, Boise State 4-4, 1-1's 10, Notre Dame group of 5. There you go.
I mean, that's pretty much what Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey wanted.
Yeah, they're completely shutting out the Big 12 and the ACC at large teams if this holds. Now, if you're like me and you're rooting for chaos, you want SMU to win the rest of its games. And I guess SMU to win the ACC championship.
And you want Miami to go undefeated the rest of – I mean, they should with their pathetic schedule, but you want Miami to go the rest of the way and then lose to SMU.
All right, folks, what do you think? Who's too high, who's too low? What do you think, Will?
Who's too
high and too low, chat? Too high and too low. Let me think about this. And we will post the rankings as soon as I find them online.
I do think that Indiana should be ahead of Tennessee.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Tennessee's best win is
the Alabama win.
Win.
I feel like a lot of their wins are weak.
Lost to Arkansas. NC State's becoming a better win, still not a good win, but 5-4. Tennessee beat Florida, who is, I believe, 5-4.
4-4.
4-4.
Look at this Tennessee schedule.
Tennessee, Indiana. That seems to be the crux, folks. Tennessee, Indiana.
I mean, I just feel like Tennessee's offense is just too...
If they would have had a better loss, and the loss is getting worse, or at least did last weekend with Arkansas getting pile driven by Ole Miss. Had that been?
I mean, when you look at how much Ole Miss scored, for Tennessee to only score 14.
Yeah, different circumstances to a certain extent, but yeah, I would just feel better about Tennessee being, especially since you're deciding on a home game. This is just not a seeding deal where who wears the home jerseys. This is not an NCAA tournament game. This is big. Yeah, I would agree with you.
Indiana will go up if they're competitive with Ohio State? Even if they lose, do you think they can move up if they're competitive?
They should. Yeah. I think that's what this is all about, is evaluating these teams. And if they go to Columbus and lose 30-24, and it's a really good game. But yeah, Tennessee with a loss to Arkansas, who's 5-4, where Indiana, if they would have been skating by these games, but they're controlling the games, they're dominating the games, they haven't had one game off. They've not had a Boise State game like Oregon has, or an Idaho game like Oregon has, or a Nebraska game like Ohio State. And I'm getting a Tennessee game against Florida, taken to overtime. I think that's a good call, Will. I'm on board with you. Indiana above Tennessee.
I'm not gonna totally say this is what I'm gonna look at the scores for a second, and I'm gonna compare BYU to Miami.
BYU and Miami. I have BYU ahead of Miami. I'm almost certain in my rankings by one spot. BYU skated by against Oklahoma State, bad team.
That's the bad one. That's their bad game, probably.
Nice win against Kansas State by 4 to 5 touchdowns. Miami does not have a comparable win to beating a Kansas State.
I mean, Miami's best win right now is the Florida win.
Yeah, it's become Florida.
For sure.
Virginia Tech 5-3.
I don't think they're 5-3. I think they're 4. Are they 4-4?
To Syracuse. I think they're 5-4.
No, they're 5-4. Yeah, 5-4.
To Syracuse.
Right.
So, yeah, squeaked by Cal, 4-4. The Louisville wins decent. 6-3. Where do we go for BYU's other decent wins? They beat Baylor, right? 5-4.
SMU.
Yeah.
At SMU, which, I mean, that's not much of a home crowd.
Yeah. That's why I put BYU ahead of them, because of the Kansas State and the SMU games. Anybody else with a pulse that BYU's beaten?
SMU. No. I guess it's just the SMU, Baylor, and Kansas State.
Okay.
Yeah. They have the Holy War, but that's not great this season.
Miami's got Florida, Virginia Tech, Louisville. Duke. Blew out Duke by 3 touchdowns. They're 6-3. I get it.
Honestly, I think, I want Notre Dame to be higher than 10, but I don't think they should be higher than 10. That being objective.
Alex, SMU just needs to win the next 2, and they probably wrap up an ACC title shot. They do wrap it up, Alex. That's what they need to do. They are undefeated in the conference.
Mark, I have to ask you this, Mark. They have Ward Manuel up.
Oh, boy.
What do you think about him being in charge, even though his team might have done some...
It's just ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just... Did no one in the powers that be, even if they thought that this was completely on the up and up and there was nothing tactfully wrong with it, don't you still, from a PR standpoint, aren't there
PR.
anybody?
It is awful PR.
Yes, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. We still have yet to get that NCAA investigation back as well. Okay, so if we fan this out, everyone, past the top 12, and again, we've got Boise State representing the group of 5, of course. We've got Oregon as the Big Ten champ. We got Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana in that order representing the Big Ten. We've got Georgia as the SEC champ. We've got Texas, Tennessee, and Alabama in that order. Then we've got the Big 12 champion as BYU and Miami representing the ACC. SMU, Texas A&M, and I believe LSU were the first 3 out. So we got to look at those teams as well. Who has an opportunity? So Texas A&M has obviously lost 2 games. They got Texas at the end of the season.
They have to win out. Do you think they'll take Texas's spot? Do you think Texas can still get in with a lost A&M?
I think so. I do think so. I don't know who's going to jump up from the SEC. This could really get interesting in the SEC if Georgia if Georgia and Texas win out, they're the 2, right? Okay. We need Ole Miss to jump in with a win, or Tennessee over Georgia, or Texas A&M over Texas. One of those to get somebody else an opportunity. Like if Ole Miss beats Georgia, then they're back into it.
Yeah. That would bring more
Texas
chaos.
A&M beats Texas. Do we know where that game is?
Oh, that's at Kyle Field.
Okay.
I wonder what the line for that game would be right now.
Maybe Texas by 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3.5.
So Georgia's got Ole Miss and Auburn and Georgia Tech, and that's it. That must be their 3.
So Auburn.
They only have 2 SEC games.
Let's see.
Folks, we've left the link in the chat if you want to give us a call.
Georgia. Off topic, but Hugh Freeze has to be fired. I think they should cut
in his second year.
Oh no, they have Tennessee plays Georgia.
Oh yeah. So Georgia's got to get through Ole Miss and Tennessee. Okay. Man, we could have a fun free for all, like some kind of crazy.
Yeah, this could be interesting.
If Georgia can lose a game and Texas A&M can beat Texas, then we've got a. Do we have Tennessee in the club? Who else could Tennessee lose to? They play Vandy, and probably
they could lose to. That would be
no. They've already played.
That would be great if they lose to Vandy. But
even if Tennessee's in the clubhouse with 1 loss, there could be a 3-way tie between Texas, Texas A&M, and Georgia with 2
They
losses.
have Mississippi State, UTEP, and Vanderbilt besides Georgia.
So there's the SEC.
I think Georgia will beat Tennessee, but you never know. I mean, Beck could have another awful game. That's what they got to rely on, I guess.
At Tennessee?
No, it's in Sanford.
Yes. So to clarify, everyone, we got the SEC and Georgia and Texas control their destinies. Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Ole Miss are in play, and all of them are playing one of those 2. So they can play their way right into it by beating one of the top 2 teams. All of them have that opportunity. That's good stuff. The ACC, who does SMU have left?
SMU.
Will is my assistant tonight, apparently, looking up schedules for me.
Yeah.
Love it.
SMU. Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. So they should be easy.
Should be. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. We are going to try to fit Pitt back into the playoff race, huh?
Pitt.
Okay.
Well, if they beat Pitt, I mean, to be fair, Pitt's schedule is back end. The back end is harder for ACC.
And
I
they're
mean, they have
also done for
Virginia.
this reason. If
They have
even if SMU loses, Pitt's going to lose a tiebreaker to SMU. They need SMU to lose twice, or they need to have some kind of crazy four-way tie created with Miami losing and then Clemson. Well, Clemson's not going to win out because they would have lost to Pitt. So then they're going to have a three-way tie, maybe SMU, Pitt, and Miami. So they need Miami to lose to what? Maybe Kyle McCord throws for like 450.
That could happen. I mean, I've seen this. We've seen this Miami defense, Mark.
Yeah.
That's a
That
good
could be a
matchup
fun
for Syracuse.
That could be a fun one the final weekend. So
Yeah.
Miami just has 2 or 3 ACC games.
They have Georgia Tech, Wake, Syracuse.
Yeah. At Georgia Tech. Is Haynes King back this week?
I think we looked for it before.
Haynes King missing against Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. Hopeful. Yes, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, that's what Brent
King plays.
Brent Key said hopeful. Yeah.
Interesting. So we did our best there, Peninsula P, to get Pitt back in the race, but it's going to take some doing, and Pitt's going to have to beat Clemson. Pitt, they're only 3-1 in the conference. They still have to play, 4 conference games?
Yes. They have Virginia, Clemson at home. They go to Louisville, and then they go to Boston College.
Yeah. Pitt fans, you should just be concerned with your team playing better. Let's start with that. Just play better. All right. So there's the ACC. We got the ACC lined up for you as well, folks. On to the Big 12. This could get messy. So we got BYU. They're in good shape at 5-0 in the conference with 4 to play?
Yes.
Okay. So they still have 4 games to navigate. Utah and who else?
Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston.
Houston playing better. Arizona State at 6-2. Arizona State's a factor, possibly.
Yeah, they have to go to Tempe, so that could be a fun game.
Can I find the rankings? There we go. Let's post the rankings. Okay. Very good. All right. Who else is in play? So Iowa State.
Colorado's in play.
What is Iowa State looking at?
Iowa State.
We're looking up Iowa State, everyone. They're 7-1 overall. They've lost 1 game. Obviously,
they go to Lawrence
against Texas Tech. They go where?
To Lawrence. They play at Kansas, at home against Cincinnati, at Rice Eccles, and at home against Kansas State.
Okay. Like you said, Colorado's in play with 2 losses in the No, just 1 loss in the conference.
Yes.
They lost to Kansas State. Okay.
They go to Lubbock. They play Utah at home, at Kansas, and finish off with Oklahoma State.
Oh, that's pretty favorable if they can get by Texas Tech this weekend. All right. Who else has 0 or 1 loss?
That's it. It's those 3.
Kansas State has 2 losses in the conference. Okay. Iowa State and Colorado with 1 loss, BYU 0 losses, and none of them play each other. Iowa State plays Kansas State. Okay, interesting. So there's a possibility if one of those 2 or both of them falter, meaning Iowa State and Colorado both get tagged with a loss. Then you bring in all these 2-loss teams that could factor in. So we got Cincinnati. Wouldn't you love to see Cincinnati go to the Big 12 championship game? That would be hilarious. That's what I'm rooting for now. Well, I'm rooting to be right. I picked Kansas State to beat Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game, but that does not look like it's going to happen. Who's Cincinnati have?
Cincinnati.
Looking up Cincinnati, folks. Big 12 championship contender.
They host West Virginia, go to Ames, go to Kansas State, and then finish off with TCU. That's tough.
Yeah. All right. So that's the Big 12. The Big 10 is pretty cut and dry. I'm actually going to produce a video, hopefully on all these races. So you've done some homework for me a little bit here. The way I've got the Big 10 sized up is basically if Oregon and Indiana win out, that's the Big 10 championship game. They'd both be undefeated. If Ohio State wins out, they've got the tiebreaker against Penn State and Indiana. So it's Oregon, Ohio State in a rematch. If Ohio State would beat Penn State and Indiana and have that tiebreaker, but then lose to Michigan, then you've got a Penn State-Indiana tiebreaker. I don't know how that would play out. It would probably go to opponents' winning percentage within the conference.
I don't know who that would favor.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah. Who do you think is the team that is the least recognized, talked about, may have the worst record, the lowest brand, that still has some long shot to make the playoffs?
We're going to take a look at the rankings.
Is it Cincinnati?
Probably Cincinnati. Let's look in the... I guess Pitt, maybe? But, I mean, they're going to have... They're a long shot.
Yeah, Pitt and Cincinnati are long shots. If Boise State trips up...
Oh, that opens a whole nother can of worms.
Are they playing anybody decent?
Then Tulane or Army would be probably get in.
Mike Ford says nobody talks about SMU. Mike, you've not been listening to my channel recently. There is no way you've been on here. I talk about SMU all the time. I've been rooting for SMU the whole season, talking about their playoff chances, talking about how they were playing in a silo and Miami in a silo, and up until last weekend, Clemson in a silo, and I was rooting for a 3-team tie for first place.
They play Oregon State. I mean, they have a pretty favorable Mountain West schedule.
All right, what's going on in the chat?
Cheryl's upset with someone.
Yes, who's do we have somebody who needs to be given the heave ho here? I don't see anything. Somebody with a wrench, take care of business if it is warranted. Meaning name calling.
Oh, I like this comment by Alex.
Okay. Alex coming in with, if Oregon wins out and Boise State wins out, would an 11-1 Washington State have a shot? So Washington State's 11-1. And why is he bringing up Oregon and Boise State?
Because that's Boise State beat Washington State, and it's his only.
They beat them bad too. 21 points. Okay, got it. What's Oregon have to do with that scenario?
Oregon beat Boise State.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's so Washington State. They can only go as an at-large. They cannot
Yeah.
go as a group of 5.
Mm-hmm.
11-1. They'd be competing against one of those Big Ten teams or one of those SEC teams.
Mm-hmm.
So as it stands right now, Alabama's the lowest ranked at-large team with 2 losses. They've got LSU coming up, but then that obviously elevates LSU. That's a good one. Does Washington State play anybody of note the rest of the way?
They play at Oregon State. That's really it. Utah State.
Next year, they play a home and home, don't they, against Oregon State?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you see this crazy scheduling situation possibility? Well, it's not going to happen now, where Iowa State and Kansas State could have played 4 consecutive games.
So they play the last game of the season, and then in the conference championship, and then in the playoff, I guess.
And then they play the first game of next season.
Oh, my goodness.
Not going to happen. But for a while there was a slim possibility. Cheryl, please help me out if you're dealing with something in particular.
I don't see anyone I don't see the person in the. I'm looking at the comments through StreamYard.
Yeah,
I don't see
don't
the
either.
person that's making her mad.
Folks, appreciate you being here. The voice of college football. We got our buddy Will on the line. Please, I've left the link in the comment section there a few times. Now, we're not going to be on forever tonight. I am interested in a few other things going on tonight. But we did.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, Mark.
We did.
I followed you on Twitter, so yeah.
I was actually a bit disgruntled here. I'm actually enjoying myself talking college football because I will have all night and all morning, and I will stay up, believe me, until 3 or 4 in the morning for sure, and longer if it takes that. But I had heard weeks ago that they had moved this to Wednesday for obvious reasons, but that obviously was not the case. Got a super chat coming in. We've got our buddy Jim. For chaos in the next 3
weeks, does he mean? There's 4 weeks left, though.
Yeah, what's reasonable chaos? You have very little chaos possibilities in the Big Ten. You basically have Ohio State and Indiana in great shape, whoever wins that game. And the biggest chaos we could have would be Indiana and Penn State having some tiebreaker that's kind of crazy because they didn't play each other for a championship spot. The Big 12, unless BYU collapses, they're safe. But we could have, like I was saying, if the 2 1-loss teams both lose, then we could have some crazy scenario with a bunch of 7-2 teams in the Big 12. The SEC, if Ole Miss, I'm sorry, I keep saying Ole Miss, Georgia and Texas do not take care of business, then Texas A&M and Ole Miss are the teams, and Tennessee are the teams that get to play those teams and knock them down. But you also have LSU and Alabama in play. There's a possible 4-way tie in the SEC because I just mentioned 6 teams that are in play, or you could have some crazy tie for second place. In the ACC, you're just rooting for both or either Miami or SMU to lose a game, and Pitt to tie Miami, or Clemson to keep winning and tie Miami. I don't know how that would work out. Again, I know what the tiebreakers are. I just don't know how they would be, how they would play out. Yes, I think we've done our best to run down the possible chaos scenarios, Jim. And again, Boise State goes down. Maybe out of the group of 5, did we ever look at that? The group of 5. Well, we got Army.
Yeah, Army, and I got probably Tulane would be the other one.
Yeah, so now it's looking like Army Tulane in the American Conference Championship game, or Memphis possibly. But Tulane's lost 2 games. I don't see.
I know
them getting
Memphis has a
out.
decent team. Yeah, Memphis got demolished by Navy. I remember that.
Yeah, they did. They gave up 56, and they lost to somebody else. I thought. I think they have 2
UTSA.
Okay, so yeah, Boise State is just so much better than everybody else in the group of 5. I just don't see it happening. And the likes of Fresno State and San Diego State and those teams that are usually good in the Mountain West aren't. They already beat UNLV.
Colorado State is the only undefeated team, and the other undefeated in the conference. But they wouldn't make it even if they beat Boise.
So we've got an Army game at Notre Dame next weekend, correct?
At Yankee Stadium.
At Yankee Stadium. Oh,
it's a home game for Notre Dame, but it's at
Love
Yankee
it.
Stadium. Yeah.
Okay, Notre Dame.
You know, that game would have been Miami at Notre Dame, but Miami backed out, which just stinks.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Army, Notre Dame. Okay, well, we'll see if we certainly found out that Navy was not up to the challenge. Notre Dame crushed them. I got into that game, watched that game. I think that, Navy certainly was never going to compete with Notre Dame, but they also didn't play well.
They've had a lot of silly turnovers. It kind of looked like a Pop Warner game for them.
Yeah. Running backs dropping pitches. Yeah.
It looks like Al Golden will have them ready for the academies. Yeah, they lost to Food, Mike. They did lose to Food.
Oh, yeah, Navy lost to Rice.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame's got Florida State, Army, USC.
Virginia in between Florida State and Army.
Well,
so just kick all their butts, I guess.
Yeah.
Leave no doubt.
They should. Don't know what to tell you about USC. I still think they're pretty good.
They're like that Scott Frost team. They just find ways to lose.
Now, their defense at this point in the season is so beat up and injured that they're wearing thin. A lot of USC fans were all over me during the offseason when I picked USC to go 8-4. So it's not like I predicted this demise of USC, but when I ever just brought up that it might be difficult to play the likes of Minnesota and Maryland and Wisconsin and Nebraska and whoever else I just threw it out there that I was expecting them to trip up a few times. Well, when you think about what their record is in the Big Ten, they're 2-5, but they've beaten LSU and they took Penn State to overtime. Who else in the Big Ten would do that outside of the obvious teams?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't expect like Wisconsin or Minnesota to take Penn State to overtime and beat LSU. Like I think they're the only team outside of the elites that could do that, but then they lose all these other games. Just very odd team.
No idea what to expect from that USC-Nebraska game.
Yeah, Nebraska's bad. I know what to expect. I don't. You're right, because USC is so crazy. But if I think that USC is still motivated and focused, I think they're better than Nebraska.
It'll be interesting to see how the Nebraska to USC fan ratio, just because Nebraska is known to travel well.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. I don't know how much more we can slice and dice this. We've gone through all the conferences. Will has been kind enough to stay on with me and play producer and run through all the schedules. And we are going to produce some videos, hopefully, once we get to them this week, breaking down all these conference races and all the possible scenarios. And of course, you can catch Will. How do you get to your channel, Will?
It should just be youtube.com. I want to try to do a video on the rest of the Irish schedule alongside my show with Jeffrey. But it's just youtube.com/ and then the @ symbol, Will ND Irish.
And we also have Jeffrey on, I believe, as we speak.
Apparently, he's riling up the Buckeye fans again.
Okay. Well, that score is going to get settled in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think Indiana is remarkable, and what they've done, what they've accomplished, regardless of how it ends here with the last few weeks, is just astounding. And again, it's not like I would be astounded and giving them tons of credit if they were winning all these games by a field goal, if they were just finding a way every week, but they are controlling game control every week, blowing teams out. I think a certain team might be sick of hearing about them by the time they show up in a couple weeks, though. I'm just
you think it won't be close? 2 or 3 scores, do you think?
I think more. It could be pushing the 21 range.
Okay. We'll see. I don't know what to expect because we haven't seen Indiana play a team even close to Ohio State's caliber, so we'll see.
All right.
Has it been since 87? Was that the last time IU beat Ohio State?
So, yes. So, Cheryl is citing the 1987 game in which it was 10-10 at half, and then Indiana launched out to a 31-10 win. Earl Bruce called it the darkest day in Ohio State football history. However, Ohio State lost to Indiana the very next year in 1988, 41-7 in Bloomington. Anthony Thompson had a huge day. That Indiana team was really good. The 87 team almost went to the Rose Bowl. They've had a tie since then. That was in 1990, but the Buckeyes otherwise have beaten them. They've played almost every year since. So what are we looking at?
Do you think, how about Buckeye, since we're talking about 80s Ohio State, do you think Earl Bruce would have kept his job if Chris Carter wasn't suspended?
Boy, that's a great question, because for as awful as Ohio State's record was, 6-4-1 that year, they lost so many. Their offense was like watching, not Iowa, but yeah, they were just struggled to score points, and they lost so many close games. Iowa beat them on a 4th down pass at the end of the game, 4th and 29. Pass.
I remember McNabb did that against the Packers in the playoffs.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
I was too young to watch that, but I saw
who's the wideout from UCLA? Anyway, yeah, Brett Favre threw a big pick in that game too in overtime.
Yeah.
Green Bay should have sealed that game. That was in 2004, I believe. But yeah, they lost to Purdue by a field goal. They tied LSU. They lost. Yeah, just a string of. Besides, actually, it was the Indiana game was the only time they got blown out. Yeah, they probably would have gone a reasonable 8-3, and he would have kept his job, I think. They refused to go to a bowl game. They turned down a bowl game. They were supposed to go play in the Sun Bowl. Yeah.
I know Lou in his last year turned down a bowl game. I think that was the last. Oh, yeah, no, they also turned one.
That. Weren't they 8-3? 1995? 96. 95, they lost to Florida State, right? In the Blockbuster Bowl. Correct?
No, the Orange Bowl. Right?
Orange. No, I think it was Orange. Orange Bowl. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why I thought it was the Blockbuster Bowl. Florida State played Penn State in the Blockbuster Bowl back when it was it was actually a decent game. Like it just
Mhm.
popped out of nowhere, and suddenly they had Penn State and Florida State, both 9-2, like top 10 teams playing in the Blockbuster Bowl.
Mhm.
It's like the Fiesta Bowl back
Mhm.
when I was like 10 or 11 years old. The Fiesta Bowl just popped up out of nowhere, and it was suddenly became a legitimate bowl.
I mean, that's kind of like what the Peach did with the New Year's Six. They added the Peach in there to
Yeah.
make it a.
Although the Peach had been around
Yeah,
forever.
it's been decent. It was a decent bowl game, but it upgraded itself.
You'll want to check
Thanks,
that
Dave.
out, Will.
Well, hopefully they're on the rise now. We'll see. I mean, if the quarterback play becomes better with CJ Carr, that could be what they're missing.
Well, folks, we do appreciate you being here. Will, thanks for jumping on with me.
Thanks, Mark. It was fun chatting playoffs.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Those are the final week 1 college football playoff rankings, the first unveiling. And so we will be here every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Usually get a big crowd for this. So hopefully in future weeks, we will get some big crowds. But we will run through the rankings here. Again, Oregon's number 1, Ohio State number 2, but they would be the 5 seed as the runner-up in the Big Ten. Georgia, 3, would elevate them to the 2 seed. Miami at 4, the 3 seed. Texas at number 5. So these are the actual playoff rankings. But again, the seedings would change. Texas at number 5 would drop to 6. Penn State at number 6 would drop to 7. Tennessee at number 7 would drop to 8. Indiana at 8 would drop to 9. BYU at 9 would elevate to 4. Notre Dame at 10. Bama 11. And then your group of 5 entry at 12. So our first round matchups would be Ohio State, the 5, taking on Boise State, the 12. You've got Texas, the 6, taking on Bama, the 11. Notre Dame at Penn State as the 7 versus the 10, and then the 8-9 game. This would annoy me as an 8 or as a 9 seed, having to travel when the resumes are like almost exact. But Tennessee hosting Indiana, and then of course, still it's the top 4 seeds: Oregon, Georgia, Miami, and BYU. First out, SMU. How about that? Texas A&M. Who would have said that at the beginning of the year? Your first out in your first week of college football playoff rankings. First team out, SMU. Texas A&M at 14, LSU at 15, Ole Miss. All those teams play just such huge games the rest of the year. Texas A&M still plays Texas. LSU's got Bama. And, of course, Ole Miss has a date against Georgia. Iowa State still looking to go to the Big 12 championship game, so they've got everything in front of them. So you got to consider that even though these are the rankings, there are teams that are lower that have better opportunities, like in Iowa State. They still have everything they still control their own destiny. Just win out, play BYU in the championship game, most likely, win the game, you're in. Pitt needs help. Normally, with one loss in the conference at this stage of the season, you probably think that they would be in better shape. But SMU's undefeated and Miami's undefeated. Therefore, Pitt needs help. Kansas State needs help. Seriously, Colorado. Actually, even though Kansas State has 2 losses and Colorado has 2 losses, Colorado only has 1 in the Big 12. So they're in better shape than Kansas State. Now, Kansas State ranked higher than Colorado because they won head-to-head. Somebody brought up Washington State, a very curious situation there because they're 7-1. They could win out and go 11-1, but probably won't make it. And the only other team there that has a chance, you know who else has a chance that's lowly ranked? Actually, Missouri. Nobody gives them a chance, including me, because they suck. They're not going to elevate, but yes, Mizzou at 6-2, only 2 losses in the SEC. They've got a chance. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Oh, hey, this is Mooley.
Holy,
I didn't,
what's going on?
I didn't realize I would be up so quickly, but yeah, no, very interesting rankings. I haven't watched much of how do you say what you said before. So before I get in, could you just give me like a quick breakdown? What were like your big reactions to it? Anything that
Well,
really stuck out?
yeah. So the breakdown is that basically the Boise State's your group of five, as expected.
Mm-hmm.
That Ohio State was elevated to the number 2 spot. Now they would not be the 2 seed because of not being a conference champion, but they are the 2 seed. They're the number 2 ranked team in the country above Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So the committee telling us something there. The 8-9 game would be Tennessee, Indiana. That would be interesting in terms of Indiana not getting much respect from the committee at this point as the 9th ranked team in the country, despite being undefeated. I think it's more about who's out at this point. And you'll want to rewind and watch earlier because we went through the schedules of all these teams and went through all these possible scenarios. I don't know that we left a scenario untouched in every conference. SMU's got a clear path. If they win the ACC championship game, they're going to get in despite being number 13 right now. They've got it all right in front of them. Iowa State's only number 17. They control their own destiny. They can go to the Big 12 championship game and win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking about Pats, I want to ask on Pats where it starts to get a little iffy. So first thing I'll say, it's pretty clear that SEC and Big Ten have more value than the other conferences. Am I correct on
Just
that?
slightly.
Yeah.
to the point that they've got 4 teams in each.
In each, yeah.
And the ACC and the Big 12, they are giving no extra teams to them at this point.
And I think the big one that's going to stick out to a lot of people is Indiana and BYU being ranked 8, 9, 9, 10?
Yeah.
8, yeah. But even below Tennessee. And I know Indiana has a matchup with Ohio State. My thing is, what if there's a scenario where, let's say Indiana loses close to Ohio State, but they do not make the conference championship? Because I believe there would still be Ohio State would be above them, and then let's say Oregon, and then Oregon goes undefeated.
Yep.
Is there a chance that like a 2-loss, like let's say SEC team, overtakes Indiana, even if they took down Ohio State to the wire? Because if that's the case, I find that a little hypocritical, because the reason why Boise State's all the way up at 12 is because they took Oregon down to the wire. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So,
and the same thing's going to happen with these SEC teams because it happens every year that they're going to be given a lot of credit for losing to other top-notch teams. Like Texas, their level of wins is not impressive.
Right. I don't see why Texas is at 5.
Their best win is Vanderbilt or Michigan. Take your pick. Vanderbilt, from a record standpoint, at 5-3, that's their best win by a field goal.
Yeah. Right.
Unless I'm missing something, I don't think I am. Oklahoma and Michigan are 5-4. And yes, Vandy's 5-3.
Yeah, I think if Texas were to lose another game, they should probably get dropped. And just looking at it, like BYU, yeah, because BYU, if they lose if they lose one game, and is there a scenario where BYU could lose one game in the season and still be left out of the championship, the Big 12 championship?
No.
Okay.
It's possible because Iowa State and Colorado have only lost one game.
Okay.
So BYU could lose once. And since Iowa State and Colorado do not play, there could be a 3-way tie for first. And we'd have to go through tie-breaking scenarios to figure out who would get left out. But another point about Texas and Penn, or just Texas, but to compare them to Penn State played a stronger game at home against the committee's number 2 team in the country, Ohio State, than Texas's performance against at home against Georgia, the number 3 team. So that also doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they shouldn't be that high. I mean, if they win out, then they probably should stay. I mean, I think the only notable game they have left I remember is A&M, but
Yeah.
maybe they should stay. I don't. It's going to be weird. But another thing is, Tennessee still plays Georgia. Let's say Tennessee ends up with 2 losses as well, but Alabama wins out. I don't think they'll. If Alabama wins out, they wouldn't bump Alabama out of the top 12. But then again, you can't put Tennessee below Alabama because they won the head-to-head, and I don't think there'll be enough of a performance or schedule difference to justify putting Alabama over Tennessee. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, who's Tennessee losing to? Georgia?
Georgia, yeah.
Okay, so they lose to Georgia. They finish 10-2. Alabama's 10-2. Yeah, Tennessee's they're not going to knock Tennessee far for losing to Georgia unless they lose 42-10.
And that's where I'm thinking some of these one-loss teams may not be able to, maybe the more deserving one-loss teams may not even have a chance. Now I know, like SMU, for example, they're in the driver's seat. They go and win out, they're in, no doubt. But here's a scenario that I know is not unlikely, but let's just get fun. Let's say that Pitt beats Clemson and Louisville.
Yep.
But SMU and Miami went out. They play in the championship. Now you have a one-loss Pitt team that has beaten 2 top 25 teams. Even though they got destroyed by SMU, they still finished strong at the end of the year. What's going to happen with Pitt?
Pitt's 11-1. They beat Clemson. They beat Virginia. Who else is on there? We won't go through it. Oh, Louisville. Okay, so they get 2 quality wins. But you know what's going to happen? And this isn't necessarily right. They're probably going to knock those 2 teams out of the top 25 by beating them. Possibly, especially Louisville with a 4th loss. But I totally get your point.
I mean, to be fair, Clemson. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say your other scenario possibility is that SMU runs the table. They beat Miami. They take the ACC championship spot. They beat Miami, who's 12-1, and knock them to wherever. I don't know where the committee would evaluate Miami then after a loss to SMU.
I don't think they'll drop Miami that much, even if Miami's schedule has been very, not good. But
yeah, they're rating it under that scenario, and I don't disagree with you because the committee they favor Miami over Pitt, and they would in that scenario. Why I don't know, because they would roughly have the same. If anything, Pitt would have a better out of conference schedule, having played a Cincinnati team that's right now 5-3 and West Virginia.
Right, and Miami's best win is Louisville, who Pitt would have won. And really, that's the only ranked team they outside of that. The only other team, maybe you could, I guess Virginia Tech's a decent team, but the only other you could quote unquote quality team is Duke, maybe, or they play Syracuse at the end of the year. But Syracuse is a interesting 6-2 team. They're I wouldn't say Syracuse is that, even though they're 6-2, I wouldn't say they're that strong of a team.
No, they lost to Stanford.
Yeah, and then that Pitt game was
that Pitt game. Yeah,
that 5 interception. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But I think I'm now to summarize everything I've said so far. I think I'm on the point with you where I just want to see chaos just to give the committee a hard time.
Yes,
massive conferences, because
absolutely
what's probably going to happen is going to come if that happens. Pitt, let's say Pitt wins out, or some other team that finishes 1 loss, whoever it may be, they're probably going to favor some Big Ten or some SEC school, put it in there, and just cause a little more chaos.
Yeah, and most likely that team's going to come from the SEC, because the Big Ten is fairly, unless Indiana collapses, the Big Ten's pretty clear cut where Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana are having such strong seasons, where the Big Ten doesn't have a 2-loss team. They go straight from a 1-loss team to a 3-loss team, where the SEC could just have a glut of teams. We're not even considering Missouri. Now there's the worst team and the worst situation, at least on the surface, that has a chance. Missouri's only got 2 losses.
Mm-hmm.
They play in the SEC, of course, and they don't play a hard schedule, and they get to finish out. Let's say they go 10-2.
Yeah. I'd hope they're not in it. I'd hope they don't make it. But I think I was looking at they were showing like the playoff predictor. It said like Missouri had like a 10% chance or something like that. So
You know what's very strange about this, Mooley, is we've run the models of the 12-team playoff during the 4-team playoff era, and every 10-2 team would have made the playoffs. Every one for 10 years. And this looks like there could be 10-2 teams left out.
yeah.
And that would have never happened. Not
Mhm.
once.
That is true. Because like Iowa State 1 loss, Kansas State 2 loss, and Colorado 2 loss. What happens in what's going to happen in the Big 12? Yeah, my mind is just kind of just boggled right now with all these scenarios. It's fun though. We'll see.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks,
Well,
Mark.
we appreciate the call. Have a good night.
You too. Goodbye.
All right, let's take our final call. We got Michael on the line. Michael, what's going on tonight here at the Voice of College Football, sir?
Not much, Mark. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
All right, the first one is officially out. What's your take? Agree or disagree?
Okay. Well, I will run through this again. You could basically just rewind the tape because I've done this a few times. But we went through all the scenarios. My take is that Texas is ranked too high. We got the decision between Ohio State and Georgia. I don't disagree with it, but I would have no issue if Georgia was placed ahead of Ohio State.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to mention that anybody watching this and anybody looking at the rankings obviously have to take into consideration how the seedings go. So Ohio State would not be the 2 seed, even though they're ranked number 2 in the country. They would fall to 5. Other than that, we're looking at Boise State obviously controls the group of 5 far more dominantly than anybody I would have expected. Like they would have to collapse. They really have a lock on the group of 5. Now, past that, SMU, Texas A&M, LSU, and Ole Miss. So you get 3 SEC teams after the first one out, which is SMU. They've got to win out. Otherwise, if they lose the second game, forget it. But Texas A&M, LSU, and Ole Miss, they all have a possibility. Now, Iowa State, they are, Michael, the lowest ranked team that controls its own destiny. Iowa State, if they win out, they'll be in the playoff. Regardless of what this looks like at number 17, they will elevate because they will be the Big 12 champion.
Okay. Fair point and stuff like that. But you said Ohio State and Georgia got it right. How?
I said that I have no issue with Ohio State being ranked ahead of Georgia, but I would also have no issue if Georgia was ranked ahead of Ohio State.
Okay, and then why do you have then you said something about Texas? I'm just coming into this. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, sure. You're fine. That's why we're here. So my argument for Ohio State over Georgia would simply be that Ohio State's got one off game. That was against Nebraska. Ohio State's only loss, of course, is the number 1 team in the country by 1 point on the road, where Georgia lost to Alabama, who's further down the rankings. Ohio State's just played a better season than Georgia generally. They both have a big win, one Penn State, one Texas. Now, the issue I have with Texas is if you compare, let's say, Texas and Penn State, Texas lost to Georgia in dominant fashion. Penn State gave Ohio State a game, and that's the committee's number 2 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Texas doesn't have any great wins. They beat Vandy, who's 5-3. They beat Michigan and Oklahoma, who are 5-4. Penn State's got a 6-3 team under their belt. Illinois. So I just think Penn State's got a better resume than Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I think Indiana should be above Tennessee. We talked about that. Yeah, those are the highlights.
Okay. Now, there's a possibility. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but 5 teams in the SEC finish 10-2 this year? Actually, there could be more than that, couldn't there? There could be 6 teams that finish 10-2 in the SEC.
Well, we would have to go through the schedule to figure that out to see if that actually could happen. Just because there are 6 teams that each one of them could finish 10-2 doesn't mean that all of them can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. My thing is, if that happens, how big is Pandora's box will be blown wide open?
Well, the committee's just going to have to determine best resumes between these and look at head-to-head. So you're talking about Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, Missouri. Did I miss somebody? LSU. Are there 8 teams? Ole Miss. There can't be 9 teams in the SEC that could finish 10-2. Is there?
I'm not sure, maybe. But anyway, I digress. Anyway. No.
Anything else for us, Michael?
Yeah. If somehow Michigan, if IU keeps doing like Georgia doing and stuff like that, Saturday against Michigan, takes about a week, gives Ohio State a competitive game but loses. How far? Well, it depends on how far they move up and who loses and stuff like that. But is there a chance that they can actually, if IU runs the table, dominates the last 3 games, they can leapfrog Oregon?
Sure.
Or is it because their schedule's going to hurt them?
Well, Oregon's schedule's not that great. So Oregon's got the win against Boise State. Indiana does not have. Hang on, Michael.
Sorry.
I'm comparing non-conference schedules. So Oregon beat Boise State, and Indiana plays no one. And then if you look in conference, Oregon, 1-point win against Ohio State. Indiana, in your scenario, blows out Ohio State. Other than that, Indiana's got Michigan. Oregon's got Wisconsin. They really don't play anybody that good other than those couple games. Neither one of them played Penn State.
No.
But they're going to play in a conference championship game. So it's all null and void.
Yeah, sure. And that's going to be it. I'll tell you, if that happens, imagine how much of a pro IU crowd Lucas Oil Stadium is going to be. I guarantee 99.9% going to be IU. But anyway.
99.9%. Okay.
It could be. But anyway, I digress. Instead of making you commissioner of college football, I'm going to put in a recommendation you be the new coach for Purdue football.
I don't think you want that, Michael. I enjoy the status that I think you like me, and you wouldn't like me very much if I was the head coach at Purdue.
Okay, what about the athletic director?
I would never want that headache. No, thank you.
Nah, sure. No, I was just wondering stuff like that. What would be more of a headache? Being the athletic director of a Power 4 school or a commissioner of all the sports like the college football, in charge of college football?
Oh, I'd much rather be the commissioner of college football.
But wouldn't that be just a bigger headache, though?
No.
Yeah, sure. Not bad. All right.
No.
I will let you go so you can eat dinner and stuff like that. And when we reveal the games you're going to be watching this weekend, please don't be watching the Ohio State game, because it's going to be bad enough anyway.
Oh. Well, before we get to Saturday, we'll do a post-game show on Thursday night, of course. And on Friday, UCLA plays at the Rose Bowl at home against Iowa, and that's a late kick. So we'll do a pregame show for that.
Yeah.
Is what we will do.
You go check out the MAC action tonight?
No, I will not. No.
Come on, you guys show some love.
I will be watching much more important things than MAC football.
Come on, Mark. You got to represent the conference of your alma mater, man.
No, thank you. I have not seen one play of MAC football, and certainly tonight would not be the night. All right, sir.
All right,
Appreciate
take
you
care.
being here.
See you. Bye.
All right, let's pick this one up from our buddy Jackson. Jackson, by the way, does a phenomenal job here at the Voice of College Football. Keeps our social media in line. Jackson also, of course, with his Alabama show on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's on the Alabama channel. Then they get together, I believe, on Thursday night for a call-in show I hope Pitt and Penn State go 11-1 so that we can see the Keystone rivalry be a first-round matchup for the 2024 CFP. It's on my Christmas list. Make it happen. That would be cool. But man, Pitt at 11-1, boy, that would be awesome to see the committee squirm on that one. Would love, love, love to see it. Folks, want to keep in mind here before we bid adieu that our book has been released. The link is in the description section of every video here at the Voice of College Football. So again, I think you will enjoy this one. I gotta say, it's good stuff. It's fun stuff. It is Disputed National Champions, College Football's historical 1990s reset. It's not just a history book. No, we place all these scenarios, all these storylines, all these results from each season, and we just pick up 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, and we put them into the BCS era, the 4-team college football playoff era, the 12-team era, the 14-team proposed era. So again, we appreciate your support. Please check it out. It's on Amazon. Disputed National Champions. All right, folks, we so much appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, and we will see you very soon. If not sooner than Thursday night for some post game. And Jackson, thank you so much for dropping the link. You guys can catch the link there in the chat to get you right to Amazon to check out our book. Thank you for your support. We will be here every Tuesday night for the playoffs reveal, and we will see you next time.